let's move on now to adding the next activity in our self-promo app, the message preview activity. So remember, the easiest way to add an activity is to right-click on the folder where you want to add it. So I'll go to my project pane, right-click, and do new activity. And as usual, we'll go for the empty activity. So let's call this the preview activity. Make sure the layout file's generated, the layout format is fine, and make sure it's still in Kotlin, which it is. Fantastic, let's click finish. So if you look at the top now, we have the activity underscore preview layout and our Kotlin file. Just going to put the create method in a bit of space. So let's go ahead straight away to the manifest to make sure that everything's correct there, and also add a couple of things for the back button and the activity title. So I'm going to go on the project pane, and I can see the manifest there, double click. As usual, Android Studio putting in the opening and closing tag for no reason, so I'll do a self-closing tag, that's better. And I'll make a line break. So the two things, we want to have a back button, so let's do the parent activity name, and make sure that's the main activity. And also we want to have the words message preview in the activity toolbar. So I'll do label, and I'll type the words message preview. So that's all we need to do in the manifest, that all looks good. Let's do an auto format. Nice, we can close the manifest down now. Let's now head over to the layout file and build out the layout for our preview activity. So we click the file at the top, and go to split view. So we only want the layout. So that's all we need to do in the manifest, that all looks good. Let's do an auto format. Nice, we can close the manifest down now. Let's now head over to the layout file and build out the layout for our preview activity. So I'm going to click the file at the top and go to split view. So we only really need a couple of things in this layout. We need the message preview in some kind of container, some kind of box, and then a button that will actually send the message with the phone's messaging app. So I'm going to delete the constraint layout. A linear layout will be absolutely fine for this. So linear layout, I'm going to put in the layout width, match parent, and the layout height, match parent. And yeah, it's not giving us a closing tag, so I'm going to do a right arrow, and now I've got my closing tag. Not forgetting orientation vertical, and that's good. So the way that I normally go about fleshing out a layout when it's a brand new screen is I get all of the elements on the screen, I don't style them initially, I do all the elements and all the IDs first, and then I do the styling afterwards. So the first thing I want for the actual message preview is some sort of card view, and then we'll change the background color to make that look a bit like paper, like a message bubble kind of thing. So we'll need card view for our message preview container, and we don't have that by default, so I'm going to head over to my browser to get that dependency. I don't have these dependencies memorized yet. Android X card view dependency, just to make sure I get the up-to-date modern one. Top one looks good. And there's my line there, version 1 still. So I'm going to copy that, I'm going to go back to Android Studio, and we need to go to our build.gradle file in our app folder. So I can find it by going to the app folder and making sure I don't click the project one, but click the app one. Or you can do shift, type build.gradle, and you can see we get two. One that says build.gradle full stop, which is our project one, and one that says build.gradle app. You can see the folder app. So you can do it using shift, just make sure you do get the one that says app, like this. So there we have it. And then at the bottom, in the dependencies, under the bottom implementation, we will add that line. And that looks absolutely fine. Let's click sync now. Okay, and that appears to be done, so we can close the build.gradle file down now and head back to our layout file. So now we've synced that, we can add our card view. So let's get our card view added. Layout width, match parent, and then we'll do height, wrap content. So we'll make it as high as the text inside it. And I'll do a right arrow to get my closing tag. And then we'll just put one text view inside this. So text view, again, match parent for the width, and wrap content for the height, and then a self-closing tag. Let's give the text view an ID, which we will need later. So ID plus text view message. And let's actually put some template text just so we can see what we're doing with our design preview to the right. So we'll use the tools namespace, so it will show up in our design preview, but will not show in the app. And now we can type text and say, this will be the message preview. I will type a long message to make sure it goes onto multiple lines. Later on, we may copy the full preview as it will be in our code, but that will do for now. So continuing down, underneath the card view, we will add the button, which is the final thing we need on the screen. So button, match parent for the width, and then height, we'll do wrap content, normal self-closing tag, because there'll be nothing inside it. And now we can add the Android text attribute. So we want the text to actually show up, and we'll just say, send message. So that's all the things we need on our screen. Let's now style this a little bit. So starting with the outermost element, linear layout, let's add some padding, squeeze everything in. So padding, we'll do 48 dp, so that squeezes everything in. And let's give the button some spacing from the card view. So let's say layout margin top. So just the top margin will do 24 dp. That looks a bit better. Let's give the text view some margin from the edge of the card view. So let's say layout margin, this time just say margin. We want it on all sides. And we'll do 12 dp. Okay, that looks a bit better. Let's now give our card view a bit of styling. First of all, let's change the background color. So we could just have the word background. You see Android background there, but that won't work properly in the card view. We actually need a strange attribute here called card background color. And just as I'm doing this, you're going to start to see, as we get more and more into the course, random attributes that don't follow previous styles to other ones, like card background color, that looks a bit different. Now, I don't have every single attribute memorized. The longer I get into my Android developer career, the more I do start to have memorized. But if I had forgotten what the attribute was to set the background color on a card view, I would do one of two things. I would either go to Google and say, how do you change the background on a card view in Android? And that would remind me straight away. Or you can just do, if I just delete this, you can just have a guess, so I type background, and then when I look at that list, I can see, oh yeah, it's that card background color, because I know from previous experience I've tried to use background and it's not worked properly. So yeah, don't feel under any pressure to memorize all of these attributes. This is going to be reference code for you for future projects, and a bit of trial and error, or a bit of Googling, anything you want to do with any of these widgets, there will be information out there somewhere for you, okay? So to get that color picker, I'm going to do a hash, do one of our hexadecimal colors, and I'll just do something like FFFFFF for completely white. If I look to the left now, I can see I've got a little white square that I can click, and that gives me this color chooser. So if I bring the color in a bit to where it's actually in the color, not white, so red like that, now I can start to slide the color thing here. So if I go find a nice sort of yellow color somewhere about there, if I look to the right, it's a bit too yellow, so I want to make that a bit fainter, so I'll click more to the top left. That's probably a bit too light, so maybe somewhere halfway in between. Yeah, that looks okay, nice and paper-like. So that will do for our background color, FFF8CB. I want to round the corners a little bit more, so we'll go down and say card corner radius. I'll do my usual 6dp. And there's just one other slight thing we need to do with the card view. You may or may not be able to see, but because we've used padding to squeeze in this card view, but there's no margin being used with the card view, that actually the shadow effect on our card view looks a bit weird, like it's being clipped off. Okay, so we have the width and the height of our card view, but because there's no margin, because there's no container space around it, it doesn't always take into account the space needed for the shadow. So this is a very slight thing that you may or may not have noticed or may not have seen, and from experience I know there's one little attribute we can apply called card use compat padding. So this is a compatibility padding thing to make it compatible with containers that don't respect the shadow. So if we set this to true, you can see now that actually that shadow looks a lot nicer. So if I just delete that again, you might be able to see that shadow's ever so slightly clipped. If you use card use compat padding, compatibility padding true, then we get a bit extra space there. You can see we've got a bit more space around it to respect the shadow, the space needed for the shadow. That's a pro tip there. That took me quite a while in my early days as an Android engineer to realise. So card use compat padding, card corner radius, and card background color, that styles our card view quite nicely. On to the text view now. We'll increase the text size from the default 14 SP to text size 18 SP. We'll do a modern font family. We'll do sans serif light. That looks nice. And we'll do a slightly darker text color than the default color. So text color, and that'll do something like 212121. That looks just a little bit darker. That looks quite nice. And the final thing we need to style really would be our send message button. So we've seen this once before, I think. The style attribute is pretty much the only attribute we use that doesn't have a namespace, because the style attribute comes by default with XML. So this style attribute that all XML documents have, Android uses that to help apply styles. And there's a whole ton of styles we can apply to various widgets, but all you need to know for this is you type button with a capital B and then dot, and then coloured, and then you get a few to choose from, and we want the widget.appcompat button coloured, that one there. And what that will do is it will apply the colour of our app's theme colours. And later on, we are finally going to have a little look at these and tweak them, so we'll have a slightly different colour later on. So that's pretty much all we need to do, I think, on the preview activity layout, except for our button ID, nearly forgot. So ID button send message. That I think now is fully complete. I'll do Control-Alt-L, Command Option-L to auto-format that. I'll remove some of the pointless line breaks, tidy that up a bit, and that looks pretty good. So I have flown through that. We will be coming back to this once or twice later on to maybe change the preview message there, and to also fix these warnings we've been seeing about hard-coded strings. We will finally fix those and understand what they mean in a section. But that's the way that I do layouts. Get everything on the screen first, give it the IDs, if I remember, and then slide it to the end. Okay? So let's head back to our main activity to now navigate to this new screen, just to test it out. So in main activity, I'm going to delete this toast and the test string for now. So we've gathered up all of our view values here. Let's just do the intent to navigate to this new screen now. So remember, we make an intent variable, so we'll do a VAL, and we'll call it our preview activity intent. Now we could specify the variable type, we could do colon intent, but as always, it's always better to let Kotlin infer that if possible. So we'll just do an equals. Now there's something new here. We haven't talked about classes and objects and making new objects yet. We'll be covering this in the section. Don't worry, it won't be a terribly long Kotlin Foundations lesson. But one useful thing is whenever you make a new object in Kotlin, you don't need to do the word new. You just do the name of the class and then the brackets. It's almost like Java, except we drop the word new. Okay? I'll import the intent class. So then we need two parameters. We need the context, so this screen. So let's just do this main activity screen. And then we need the name of the class that we're navigating to. So in Java, that would be previewActivity.class. And we give you a little warning here. This is probably going to be one of the weirdest things you're going to see in Kotlin. It's just a one-off little thing. For the intents to work, they need the Java class, not a property, not a method, a class, the actual file, and the Java version, not the Kotlin version. So this doesn't work in Kotlin, because in Kotlin, dot then something is either a property or a method. So the way that Kotlin refers to actual classes, the actual file, is with colon colon. So it's colon colon class, okay? So that still won't work because that's the Kotlin class. That's the, if I show you at the top, that's this class file, okay? So to then reference the actual Java class, remember that compiled Java bytecode, you have to add the word .java. So when I switched from Java to Kotlin, I was completely fine with it all, except for this thing. I thought that looks really weird, colon colon class. You don't see this very often, because actually you don't often refer to the actual file. It's pretty much only for intents. So don't be too put off by this preview activity colon colon class.java. You'll get plenty of practice doing this. This is one of the only times you do this structure, and it's just when you have to give the intent to the Java class file. So you do preview activity colon colon class in Kotlin to refer to the actual class file, and then .java to get the Java equivalent, the Java bytecode. Okay? So that's what we need to do for intent. Slightly weird. You'll get plenty of practice with that later on. Let's now do start activity, and then we can pass in that preview activity intent. And actually what we should probably do in the preview activity to make sure we see something in that text view is set the text. So if I do text view message, and then we can do text, and I can set that to we are manually setting some text in our text view, just so we can see something, exclamation mark. Again, how useful is it to use this Kotlin X synthetic things? These things, yeah? No more 5p by ID. It's that easy to set the text. Okay, let's go ahead and run the app now, so click play. Okay, I can leave my form blank because we're not doing any kind of toast preview, so I'll leave the form blank, preview message, and then we have our message preview, nicely styled, complete with the toolbar label message preview, the back button, and then our text view that we've just updated. We are manually some text in our text view just so we can see something. And the back button works. Fantastic. So hopefully you're getting more comfortable now with making a new activity in our projects, going to the manifest if you want to change the title or add a back button. Hopefully you're feeling comfortable with diving into a brand new layout and fleshing it out nice and quickly, not worrying too much about memorizing every single attribute. We've had a first look at the way Kotlin does intents, so we now have a screen ready to receive our values, so we can finally move on to one of this section's major concepts, which is how do we pass data between activities. So let's look at that next. Now we have our preview activity, and we've got our intent to move to it. It's now time to learn how to pass data, to pass values between activities. You might have thought that maybe we could do some kind of method or function on the preview activity, and that main activity could call it some kind of set data function. But the reality is with activities in Android is that fundamentally they actually don't know anything about each other. In this intent here, we're sending an instruction, an intent, an explicit intent to start a specific screen in our app, but main activity will have no reference to that preview activity. It won't know anything about it. Under the hood, when we launch this intent with start activity, the Android system will look at the manifest, make sure we have this class, which we do, and it will make a new object, it will make a new version of this preview activity. So it will make a new instance of this class. But back in main activity now, we won't have any ability to get hold of that object. We won't have any ability to get hold of that version of preview activity. So I know this might seem a bit confusing, but it's really important to understand. When you do an intent to move to a new screen, the Android system handles that, but you don't get any reference in the activity that you're moving from. Okay, so we can't interact with preview activity at all from main activity. So then you might think, well, how can we possibly pass data along? And the answer lies in the intent itself. So way back in the previous section where we first learned about intents, we realized that intent was quite literally an intent to do something. Hey Android, I'm main activity, this word here, this is the context, I intend to move to this screen, can you fulfill this for me? And that's an explicit intent where we give a specific class in our project. The other option, of course, is an implicit intent where we don't say a specific class, we just say an action, a thing that we want to do. But the intent is quite literally the thing we intend to do. Well, now is a really good point to further our understanding of how intents work and what an intent is by introducing another analogy. So think of an intent like a letter. So in our letter, we put who the letter's from, and that's the first parameter, so this screen, this version of main activity, and then we write the letter who to. So from, and then to, okay? We then give that to the postman, and the postman is the Android system. So with start activity, we hand it to our postman, and then our postman looks at our letter and decides what to do with it. So it sees preview activity, it looks in our manifest, which is our address book, it looks in our manifest and goes, okay, yeah, I know who that recipient is, and then off it goes to that new activity, and then it commands it to start. So an intent is a bit like a letter. Well, what's one thing that's true of letters? You can put other things inside them. So our intent, our letter, with a from and a to, can have some additional contents. And this is how we go about passing other things to our new screen. So actually the process of doing this is quite simple. So we'll make some line breaks under the variable. So we do preview activity intent, our letter, our intention to move to a new screen. And the method that we call on this intent is put extra. So we've got our default letter, from which screen to which screen. That's our default letter. But if you want any additional data, if you want any extra data, then you call the method put extra. So let's do exactly this. So full stop, put extra. And you can see the whole load of methods. They all look the same on my screen because I've got a really big font. But basically they have a key, an identifier, the name, and then the value. And those values cover most of our simple, our primitive data types. Int, byte, character, long, float, short, double, boolean, okay? So we'll do put extra, autocomplete. As you can see, we need two parameters, an identifying name and a value. So we need to give a name for each bit of data we want to pass. And whatever name we give in this activity, the origin of our intent, it needs to match in the destination. So we'll go ahead and add our contact name first. So I'll do a string, and I'll simply call this contact name. The string can be more or less whatever you want. It can have spaces, it can have underlines, underscores, capitals, doesn't really matter. So contact name, and then we'll put in our string, the contact name string. So this is the structure. We get our intent variable, we call the method put extra, we name our bit of data, we name our additional extra bit of contents, and then we put the contents in it under that name. So later on we can retrieve this using this name. Okay? I'm going to go ahead now and duplicate this 7 times for our 7 bits of data. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to go ahead now and give each extra bit of data, each thing that we're passing, a unique name, and I'll make sure to change the variable over. So for example, I'll change contact name to contact number, and I'll change the variable over. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and pause this and unpause it once I've done all of that. See, as long as when we retrieve it in the test. So the next thing to do is to retrieve those values in the preview activity. So I'm going to head over to preview activity now. So we don't have much here at the moment. We have our set content view, and then we're manually changing the text just for a demonstration. So I'm going to delete this line for now, the text view.text. And under set content view, I'm going to retrieve the values here. So in any activity, the intent that was used to start it, whatever that intent might be, is available to us. So we would have started this preview activity with an intent from main activity. So all activities have access to the intent. As a reminder, this is one of the benefits of inheritance. This comes as part of the features of the app compatibility that we're extending from. Okay, so because we're extending from app compatibility, we have access to the intent object. And the way you get access to that is simply by typing the word intent with lowercase. You can see in brackets it says from get intent. If we were in Java, we'd have to type get intent. It's a method. But in Kotlin, it looks a lot like a property, a variable like that. So that will be the intent, the letter that the postman has delivered. That will be the intent that started this activity. So on this, we can then get those extra bits of data one by one. So if I do full stop, yes, we could put more things into this intent, but actually we want to get the data out of it. So type get for get. And then you can see, rather than just one get extra method, we have specific methods for each data type. Get boolean extra, get byte extra, okay? So you need to know what type of thing you're getting out of your letter. So in our case, it is strings for all of them. So we do get string extra, and then you need the name that we assigned in the previous activity, the key, the label, okay? So this system with the unique names, that's what gives us the ability to have multiple strings, multiple ints, or multiple booleans, or whatever. So we'll get our first string out, which was contact name. So this line here, getting the intent and then calling get string extra on it, this will return a string if one exists under this key, and if not, it will be null. So let's assign this to a variable. So val our contact name. So if there's a string under this name, then it will be saved into this variable. And it's a nullable type. If I try to type string, you can see you get a warning if we spell the name wrong, or we forget to include this, or this doesn't quite match up with something, then this will be null. Okay, so it's actually a nullable string. Okay, I'm going to remove the type. I'll let Kotlin infer that. So again, I'm going to copy this 7 times and make sure all the keys match. So I'll pause and unpause once I've done all of that. Okay, so I've done that. You can do the same. So we've used our intent to put extra things, extra bits of data along with the letter along with the explicit intent to start the activity. We've used the intent to store those extra bits of data, and we're retrieving them by name in the next screen, in the next activity. Okay. So just to test that this all works, let's quickly make a template string from this. So we'll do val our test string, and we'll make that equal to contact name, and we can use our $sign for our wonderful string templates that Kotlin has. So contact name, then a comma, then contact number, $sign, contact number, my display name, and then my display name. It's going to be one of those long lines again, I have to apologize. Includes junior, colon, and then we $sign include junior. Job title, $sign job title, immediate start, $sign immediate start, and then start date, if not, and then start date. So there's our quick string template. And just to show this on screen to make sure it's worked, I'll do a new line. We will set this on our text view. So we'll get our text view message, and we'll make the text equal to this test string. So now we can go ahead and test all of this to make sure it works, to make sure that we can pass all those values from activity to activity. So let's go ahead and run the app now. So I'm going to quickly fill out the form to make sure it all works. So contact name will say Richard Recruiter. Here's the number, my trusty fake UK number. I'll do Finn Norman. I'll say that I'm junior. We don't have a job title drop down yet, so that's fine. I'll say not an immediate start, but I'll say we're starting from the 24th of November 2020. And we'll click preview message. So when we do this, we'll make that new intent in main activity, put all of those extra bits of data into our intent, into our letter, and then in the preview activity, it will open that letter, open that intent, and it will get out all of those extra bits of data one by one by name. So let's click preview message. And there we have it. Now, if we look at this, contact name, yep, contact number, that's good. My display name. Now, my display name is null. So we've got one mistake there. Include junior is null. Job title is null. And immediate start is null. So we've got some mistakes here. So let's see what went wrong. Well, first of all, for the 2 checkboxes, include junior and immediate start, they are not strings. They are actually a boolean. If I try and do a string here, you'll see that doesn't work. However, in preview activity, we've done get string extra. So the fix for this is to change it to get boolean extra. Okay? And with boolean, you need a default value. It can't be null. So we'll say, if you haven't specified, it'll be false by default. And we'll do the same for immediate start. So get boolean extra. And we'll say by default, immediate start is also false. Okay? So that'll fix those 2. What are the mistakes we have? My display name is null, and the job title's null. But we know why the job title's null, because the spinner, the drop down doesn't work yet. So my display name, something's gone wrong. Well, here in preview activity, I'm trying to get it with the name my display. But in main activity, I typed my display name. So I would love to say that this was an intentional mistake to prove how important the key is, but in honesty, that was a genuine mistake. But good to know. So if you make any mistake in the way you type and then retrieve the name, the label for your bit of extra data, it will just return null by default, or in the case of booleans, whatever your default value was. Okay? So if I run this again, and quickly fill out the form, Sarah Sales. Okay. So if I run this again, null by default, or in the case of booleans, whatever your default value was. Okay, so if I run this again, you can quickly fill out the form. Say sales, my trust number, oops, my name, I'll say include junior, yes, and immediate start, yes, no, I'll leave that as no, and then 23rd of November 2020, and now if I click preview message, my display name works, include junior is true, immediate start is false. So that is passing data from activity to activity. We've covered thinking of an intent like a letter, from and then to, and then the ability to include extra things inside there, and then we put them inside with put extra, put the extra bit of data, and we label it with put extra. We don't have to specify the type. The intent will know what's being put into it. We just have to name it. But in preview activity, we have to call get and then a specific type. So if we make a mistake, if you do get string extra when really this was a boolean, then as you saw, that will be null. Okay? So we have to get them one by one by name, and we need to know what the type is. And that is the way to pass data from activity to activity.